Well, let's talk about innovations. It's okay to talk about innovations in the coming years, but we're in such an exciting time where innovation is going to be with us for a while, because with tools, sometimes innovation happens just for the sake of it, not for the necessity of it. Let's talk cordless. What innovations do you see coming forward next?
There's new tools coming all the time, that are versions of what already exists in the market. That happens all the time. I think the big innovations now are actually the quality of componentry.
Okay.
That's one of the things we know. I mean, air's had 50 years to evolve, and if I take a hammer out of an air impact wrench, I know if I put that hammer and I use it, it's going to last, and I know this doesn't sound long, anywhere up to say 30, 40 hours. The cordless industry hasn't quite got there yet. It's still only back at that sort of 10 to 15 hours life for the hammer. Now, that doesn't sound like much, does it? But you go and hang off something that's hitting and hammering away for 15, that's a lot of hammering. That's years of hammering, believe it or not.
It is.
In the real world. So that's sort of something that it's going to innovate in the cordless industry to sort of catch it up. And that'll be a great step forward for the cordless. I guess one of the other things that needs to catch up in that cordless world is the ability for electronics to become more fundamentally sound under heavy use. And I know that sounds like an odd thing to say, but the reality is at the moment, we've had a big wash across the industry and everyone moved across to cordless in some areas. And funnily enough, right now we're seeing that wash come back the other way.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. In the truck industry, in changing tyres or doing chassis work, big change to cordless. A lot of it's come back because that industry has suddenly learned that if you get a big enough sledgehammer, which is what these things are, and you belt it hard enough, electronics just don't work. Unfortunately, they're not in the position to put it. And it's not a one brand problem, it's a industry-wide problem, because the electronics that are being built over here by the electronics companies, they haven't considered, putting it in something where you're going to belt it with a sledgehammer over and over and over for hours on end.
Yeah.
So air has that proven longevity in that part of the market. I think the innovations will come on that electronic side and that motor side to actually be able to match the longevity of the air side. That'll be interesting when that happens, because it'll see another fundamental shift in where we go.
Well, one thing you've never been able to do really with air is put in place, your torque settings and so forth. You couldn't, program them in like a manual. And I guess unless you end up with an AI technology technician who is doing set programs where you've already rated that, this is going to stay the same. I don't think we would see that coming in.
No, not in a hurry. I mean, and reality is you come back to, you're talking about specific torques.
Yeah.
And specific torques are a great thing, but I think it's still always going to be fundamentally a manual job, because it's not just about achieving a torque with, we've all used a torque wrench. When you bring a torque wrench up, it's a feel.
Yeah.
It's not just, it's a feel and a smoothness. You can actually buy cordless, electric and air, extremely accurate torque machines now, but they're tens of thousands of dollars, and they're used in the automotive assembly industries, and all sorts of industries are using them, but they're not for the general mechanical industry, and I never see them coming there because of the complexity of the tool.
Yeah.
So come back to the mechanical industry where we're still talking things up. I think it will stay fundamentally as a manual torque wrench, because that bringing a bolt up to torque over a number of steps, having that feel in your hand as you're doing it up is very important, and it's something that we as humans still have a feel for.
Yeah.
So unless we're going to become robotic, I don't see that changing in a hurry.
And some of our top-end vehicle manufacturers still actually now go analog and pride themselves on a handmade engine, hand-stitched. That is almost the vinyl coming back, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's the same. You're hand assembling an engine, your hand doing the torque, your hand doing. Is there any harm in bringing a pneumatic or a power tool in for stripping down an engine? No. Go your hardest.
Efficiency.
If you break something, that's all good. But you've just spent all that time rebuilding something to put it together to then damage something because you did, that's an absolute no-no. And every tradesman right now is probably shaking their head like I am because they know you just don't do that. It's a fundamental issue that we're not going to go there. So
it's an interesting value adder when you start to pull that apart, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hand put back together, handmade, hand done.
Yeah. It's one of those things that people should be proud that we can still do something by hand, even if it costs a little bit more.